Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
Like I was saying before I hit record, technical difficulties with just about everyone across the world happens typically when you're doing this podcast and stuff, really any technology stuff. So, but we figured it out. At the end of the day, that's all that matters, right?
This felt like 2020 when we were all learning how to go to court on Zoom.
I can only imagine what that was like with the judges, the plaintiffs, the defendants, everybody just kind of like trying to figure their way out. I actually, hold on, let me introduce first before I tell you guys this, because I think it's funny. But my name's Rob Valencia. I am the host of the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I have the pleasure of having with me Tom Daley, and I should have asked you this before I started. Is it Neda Garrett?
Neda, yes.
Neda Garrett. All right, cool. I was close. Now, you guys are board-certified family law attorneys. But you're a little more than that as well over there, Tom, right? You got a lot of tech background over there that we're going to get into today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
But what I saw today, and maybe you guys will get a kick out of this, a guy created his own lawyer in AI and played it for the judge, and the judge said, whoa, what the hell is this? And the guy's like, oh, that's my AI lawyer that I created. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that whole episode baffled me because somebody sent me that a reel of that on Instagram, and so I see what I guess is the Chief Justice of that court, and I see the AI guy talking, and so I thought it was a remote appearance. So
that's what I thought too.
I thought, how did the judge figure it out that quickly? 'Cause I didn't think he was that bad. But then she points to this guy slouched in his chair and said, "Is that you?" He goes, "No, I said AI I made." So then he goes to the podium, and it looked like he wanted to play it from there. He screwed around with his phone, and so she finally said, "Your time has started." So I'm like, have we not learned anything since the "I'm not a cat" video, which hailed out of the proud state of Texas?
It's wild to think like this is where we're heading, like, and to be honest, I mean, if you look at it from someone who can't afford a lawyer. You get your choice between a pro bono / defend, was a public defender or whatever, right? Or an AI. And at some point, the AI's probably going to be better than, obviously not an expert, right? Because a lot of times, public defenders, I feel, and I don't know this, right? Maybe you guys can shed light on this, but I feel like the movies and TV shows shit on public defenders. Like they're just kind of like people who got a law degree, but, they don't feel like doing high profile things. They just, work for the courts or whatever. Maybe you could shed some light on that, because I think most people, that's what we think of when you hear a public defender.
Well, so the public defenders are in the criminal world. So Ned and I are familiar with public defenders only on those rare occasions when our clients have acted so crazy that we can't handle them in the family court system and the criminal law system takes over. But there is you can tell the difference between somebody who's defending, not necessarily defending, but representing themselves in a family law matter with and without AI. In fact, I remember about a year or so ago, I filed a motion and I wanted the judge to talk to a child to get the child's preferences for where she wanted to live and who she wanted to live with and that sort of thing, which we could do in Texas. And Dad didn't want that to happen. He was representing himself. So he drafted this insane non sequitur that he then submitted to the court. And of course, the court didn't have any leeway. They had to grant our motion. But I thought to myself, what if he had just taken my motion, pasted it into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or one of the big LLM products, and said, draft something opposing this motion. So that's what I did. I swiped my motion, pasted it in, said, draft something opposing this motion, and it came back with a very cogent response. So I thought, okay, maybe AI is not ready to take over, but a person who knows how to leverage that tool will do better than the person who doesn't.
Yeah, I mean it's wild to think, and I mean there's some really cool stuff. I mean I've got a I'm an entrepreneur to a certain degree, so I have a couple things always going on, and I saw someone's website for something that I'm doing, and I was like, that's a really good website. And I plugged it into ChatGPT and I said, hey, I want you to recreate this website exactly how it is. Just don't use any photos, none of that stuff, so I can make it my own. And it kicked out something that looked really freaking good. I was like, wow, okay. Like, if it could do this now, just think about it, what it's going to be able to do in 5 to 10 years.
Well, this is the worst it's ever going to be. And of course, I come to using AI as a tool from a technology background. Neda doesn't. She comes to it from a background of MBA, law school, and that sort of thing. So you've got a totally different experience, not qualitatively, but just experientially.
Yeah, I didn't even know what ChatGPT was up until about a year ago or so, and Tom was telling me about it, and I've used it for all sorts of things, from create a trip itinerary to kind of like what Tom said was, you can upload something that's really, really long and ask it to give you bullet points on what it is, or draft an outline based off of what you upload. But going back to what you mentioned earlier about a pro se litigant, like, we have seen pleadings come in from people that are representing themselves. It's very obvious that this came from ChatGPT. I mean, some of them don't even change the formatting that ChatGPT spits out.
Yeah.
So it's like, the same font, the same formatting and everything.
I hope this pleading finds you well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But
it's like, come on, man, put in a little work,
But some of it's not bad. And so, we're just like, oh, okay, you just got to kind of deal with it as it comes. But we have also seen, like, it spits out, there's a federal case, I believe, where there was a lawyer that put a brief together for a judge, and it was citing to wrong case law. But it's a made-up case that doesn't even exist. And we've seen it before, too, in our line of work, where it'll make it sound like a real case, like Chevron Oil versus, such and such, and it'll have a citation and everything. And it's like, it found it somewhere.
Like real law, yeah.
Yeah, and so that lawyer got sanctioned for using a fake case, because, I mean, at least go check your sites,
Look, I'll tell you this, and I've said this before on my podcast. It's gonna sound silly, maybe not to you, Tom, because you've been in the tech sector for a while. I still, anytime I ask any AI to do something for me, I say please.
Okay,
I do too.
But we've also all seen the memes or the reels where it shows the kind of the post-apocalyptic cyborgs walking around, and you see some little guy like me sitting like this, and it like, no, leave him alone. He always said please and thank you. So
yeah, that's all I'm saying is when they rise up and take over, I'll be in the line they're not going to kill. I'll probably be a slave or something, whatever.
But I'm not going to
die.
Yeah. So, and actually, there was some research done by, and I wish I could tell you who, one of the big universities, MIT or something like that, who said that politeness to the LLM or to the AI does give better responses. And I'm sure,
it's wild.
You right. And so, of course, an optimistic person like me would say, oh, maybe that's some, the emergence of sentience. Others would say, no, man, this is a mathematical model, and it's just that polite. So remember, it's vacuumed up all the content from the internet and put it into its mind to figure out what the next word should be. And then all this content is vacuumed up off the internet. People who have addressed other people politely have tended to get back higher quality responses. And so when it's mimicking the same, predictive algorithm for figuring out what the next word should be, a little bit of politeness kind of gives it a little better runway to that. So, whether it's sentience or just, strapping yourself into a better set of content, it does really help, besides our post-apocalyptic anxieties.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have manners too, so I guess it's just for me. I don't just like to just tell something to do something for me. It makes me feel weird. I feel a little bit better saying please, even though I know right now it probably doesn't matter.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. When you're asking it, say, to replicate a website, or you're asking it to come up with do some programming for you, if that's what you do, and like I'll just give you an experience for me, see if you had the same experience. Last week I was having it work on something for me, And I don't use Docker, and I know that's no one who wants to hear about law is going to know what that means, but maybe you do. But I don't really. I've heard about it forever, never used it. So I kept saying, well, I'm having this problem. And they say, try this, and I'm like, I don't completely understand what you're talking about. And I felt like, God damn it, I'm coming back for like the 5th time asking for help on this. And if it was a human, I'm like, I'm about to have the door slammed in front of me. So I'm like, I start getting reticent to ask the 5th question. Like, I'm still not getting it. I don't know. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I've had. Well, you know what I'll do, even though it's got memory now, which kind of fucks with me a little bit because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, hello, Robert, and I'm like, oh, I keep forgetting that there's memory built into it. Is I will just delete it and then I'll start a whole new chat,
Oh.
just to make myself feel better.
For
But
that
it has
judgment.
memory now. So it remembers a lot of stuff. Like I started a collectibles business, and I asked it about. It helped create a logo for me. It helped pull a website for me, and it helped me come up with social media and things like that, structures, right? And so when I bring up certain things, like, oh yeah, your collectibles business, and I'm like, oh man, there's something about this that's freaking me out a little bit, but I'm going with it.
Yeah, let's
I'm
go.
going with it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that context does help and give better results, but it is kind of freaky that you can be away from it for 10 days and you come back and it is like there was no pause between the last bit of the conversation and what you're continuing with.
Did you guys download the app? Have you had the voice conversations with ChatGPT?
I have the app, but I haven't had a voice conversation with it.
You all right. When this podcast is over now, I hope you guys email me, okay, after this, because I want your feedback. Have a conversation with ChatGPT. That'll freak you the fuck out. It's like that.
That will.
Oh, because
we have I've written an email before, and he's
You
laughing.
know exactly what this is.
Yeah, so I was irritated about something that happened with my son's soccer team, and so I wrote an email, and I said, "This is what's happened, and I need you to write an email to the directors." And it spit something out, and I was like, "Nice, but I need you to be angrier." And so it spit something else out. I go, "No, I need you to be really angry because this is exactly what happened." And I just started typing what happened. And it just wrote out this really, really angry email. How did it even sign it? It was like something like,
I don't recall it. I do recall that at the apex of its ire, she's like, perfect, send.
yeah, it's just like, okay. But you can negotiate with it. You can tell it, change this, do this, change your tone, etc., which is so interesting to me.
Of course, and what his experience is telling us is now ChatGPT remembers you as an angry person.
Probably so.
I'm just saying, me and Tom sound pretty safe in the apocalypse. That's all I'm saying over here.
Right?
This is why all of his emails start with, "I hope this email finds you dead."
Yeah.
But look, I work in an office, so a lot of times I'm typing the angry email, and I'm like, all right, let me plug this. And I've taught. I'm a trainer for our company,
Okay.
so I had to teach. So our support staff is some older ladies, and they're awesome. I fucking love them, but they know technology, but they don't know it. So I had to have a whole ChatGPT class, and I'm like, this is what you could do. And look, I work in the insurance world, and people say some really messed up shit to you because they don't give a shit,
Right.
So I'm like, all right, what I need you to do is copy their response, put it into ChatGPT and say, how would you respond to this? Telling them to go fuck themselves, but in the most business-like manner you could possibly handle it. And it kicks out some great stuff. You read it, you're like, oh man, if I could only have a camera and watch this guy read this email,
Right.
He's bright red and fuming.
Oh,
what he
right.
just read.
Well, see, I have the opposite because I start with the angry email, and I'll just tell it. My email is likely to be printed off and shown to a judge at a hearing. Please rewrite the above draft in a manner that won't get me sanctioned. And it seemed to have some idea what that means. I'm very happy with the results it comes up with.
It's getting better, and before you know it, I mean, I'm really interested to see what GPT-5, which I think we're getting pretty close to. So it'll be a trip.
They keep teasing us with it, yeah.
Yeah, 4.5, then there'll be 4.75, and there'll be mini 5, and then before you know it, right?
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about you guys. So before we get into the meat and bones of this, can each of you kind of tell me a little bit about what growing up was like, and what got you into studying law and eventually becoming a lawyer.
I don't even know where to start. So, I just went to A&M for undergrad, and I got a business degree because I wanted to go to law school, and I didn't want to just get a poli-sci degree in case law, fell through. So I got a business degree, and then I went to tech for law school, and I thought I was going to be a corporate lawyer, and came out.
Fun.
Yeah, because everyone wants to do that. That's what you see on TV, and graduated in 2009, where the economy was in a great state, and just tried applying to wherever I could get in. Got a job at a small firm that kind of did a little bit of whatever walked in the door, and my boss did not want to really do family law, so I was stuck doing it and trying to figure my way out. Landed here at the firm I'm currently in, and I've been doing family law exclusively now for 15 years. So, just kind of fell into all the right pieces. The pieces fell in place, just, met this person, and I can't imagine doing anything else at this point.
It's life, right?
It is.
It's all life. Life is just a big game of networking.
Yeah, and you talk to interesting people. Everybody has a story. And, there's always some drama sometimes, and it just keeps it interesting. You're not sitting at a desk just reviewing documents. You're just dealing with people and their problems. So.
And you're almost like a psychologist in a way, too. You got to, really get into someone's head, think how, what they did, how they reacted, and then how you can use that against them,
Well, right. I mean, that's really, I was telling somebody the other day, the essence of our job is that we have these chemical reactions that occur in our brains, we call them thoughts, and then either through compressing air with voice or electromechanical with typing, I'm trying to create that same chemical reaction in somebody else's head. I want to convince them of my idea. And that's all we do all day long. It's just about communications. And so that's why some of this AI stuff is better, because to the extent that we can communicate more effectively or in a manner that doesn't automatically inspire ire, we start to get better and better at creating that sympathetic chemical reaction in the other brain. I started the life as also business, economics is what I got my undergraduate degree in. So I've got a 20-year head start on Neda in life, almost to the day, a little less than a month apart. So I was, so no one has to know how old I am, or do the delta to figure out how old she is. But anyway, I got that head start. So I graduated with a degree in economics, a bachelor's degree in economics, which is almost as useful as a bachelor's degree in psychology, right? You're not going to get on the president's economic advisors forum. So I got into.
That's what I wanted to do, by the way. I wanted to be a psychologist, and it's actually where I met my fiance in college.
Okay.
And I just didn't feel like doing. I was one of those people. I was already working full time, and I just didn't feel like doing another 4 years to get a master's to get a job.
Right.
So I went into IT.
PhD. Yeah. Yeah. So I was kind of in the same boat. So I got out and I thought, well, I got to do something. I don't want to go. One of my professors said, you got to get an MBA at Stanford or somewhere. I'm like, I got to get a job. I'm tired of being poor. So, I went and got a job that didn't pay much. But anyway, started at a call center and then just decided to become a programmer, got onto Wall Street, did some stuff there, started a software company, sold it. And then in 2002, I wanted to go to law school a long time ago, but I just didn't have the money for it. So I joined ROTC because they would pay for me to, I was military material, not at all, like the opposite of that. I didn't last a week in ROTC in college. They're like, hey, you got to do 20 push-ups. I'm like, at once? I mean,
do I get a break?
can we do these in installments? I'll do 4 or 5 today, come back tomorrow. Is there a deadline I got to get these done by?
You're not doing 4 or 5 either.
40 years ago, I had a different shaped body.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, but I probably wasn't doing it then either. So I just didn't do it. Then after I sold the company, I was just kind of tired of the electronic trading world. It just seemed like there were other things to do and there were greater things to do, but they were going to be done by greater minds than mine. I had done probably all I was going to do in that field. So I thought, I remember I used to want to be a lawyer. I wonder what that would be like. And so off I go. And then, I met gal who did family law. So I'm like, well, I only want to do family or criminal because I like people. And if I just want to do transactional stuff, I get back in the software world because that's all civil law is you're just programming in Microsoft Word instead of Python or whatever. So
Yeah.
just started practicing. So Ned and I probably started practicing law in earnest about the same time. I graduated in '07, but then I ran for office, didn't win. And so I basically screwed around '07 and '08 doing that. So in 2009, I'm like, okay, my wife saw how much money I spent on the campaign and said, you got to go make money instead of spending. So we probably started about 3 months apart.
That's cool.
Yeah, 3 months apart and worlds apart, but just by pure statistical chance, wound up at the same firm.
And you decided, so your decision was between criminal and family, and you went the family route. Was there a reason you chose family over criminal?
So I keep trying to figure out a way to articulate a noble reason for that, and I think I could, but it would be a lie. You can't make money. You can't make money in the criminal world. You're either gonna represent the really high profile criminals, and it's like the 8 guys and gals that do that, or you're gonna be doing the public defender work for $50,000 a year. Well, I do
Oh
all
God.
kinds of stuff to make $50,000 besides putting on a suit and going into a courthouse. So I thought, let me do family law. But the other part of family law, in criminal law, we say you've got, bad people on their best behavior. They've done something bad, or they're certainly accused of doing something bad, and they're just best suit, best foot forward, first haircut they've had in 20 years. In family law, we generally have good people on their worst behavior. These are people they've been married, maybe, they've got some kids together, maybe, and they're generally more or less productive citizens, but something's happened in this relationship that has triggered them to act like monkeys. And so we get to come in and help them resolve the problems, their family dynamics. When counselors give up, that's when the family law attorneys catch, and we try to carry it across the finish line for them.
That's got to be pretty interesting.
It is.
I can tell you the family dynamics with my fiance's family is. I'm sure you guys would have a field day over there.
Oh, I bet.
She's laughing. She's behind the green screen. She's laughing.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about law. Maybe can you guys talk a little bit about what you do as family law attorneys, and kind of go over maybe some misconceptions that people have about family law.
Well, the primary things that we will do, there's other parts of family law than what Ned and I work on, but the primary things that we're going to do is either a divorce, child custody issues, and sometimes that's the same lawsuit if people are divorcing with children, and then either a modification of the custody arrangement as the kids grow older and the circumstances change, enforcement of the order if somebody's not letting the other parents see the kids or they're not paying their child support, or enforcing that divorce decree. I was supposed to deliver some property to my ex-wife and I didn't, so she files a lawsuit to collect it from me. So that's the bulk of what we do, is going to be those sorts of lawsuits. There's also within family law, there's adoptions and terminations and that sort of thing. But and we've got attorneys at our firm to do that, but that doesn't really make up much of the practice for me and Neda. So by focusing on those touch points in a family's life or in a person's life when the marriage is falling apart, or where the co-parenting relationship, maybe they were living together, has fallen apart, and so they've got to figure out how we're going to raise these kids together when we're not together. So that's where we're entering into people's lives. So the first thing we're having to do is, like, what got us here? Not from the mental health care professional's perspective, so maybe as the family therapist, if that was your job, you might be say, okay, how did we get here? How do we get you back? Right? How do we reconcile the marriage or reconcile the co-parenting relationship? No, the counselors have given up. That's when we pick up. The marriage can't be reconciled. The co-parenting relationship can't be reconciled. So how do we put in place, basically a peace treaty to stop the warfare that erupts between people?
Which I'm sure you've seen some messy, crazy stuff, because that's got to be some of the lowest points of people's lives. Typically, is divorce and splitting the family.
Well, it's the pain, right?
Yeah.
This the talk about that a little bit, just the unresolved pain that people come in with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the harder cases to deal with sometimes is when you have a client who doesn't want the divorce. And, so it's not always two people coming, in the trenches with their weapons pointed at each other. Sometimes you have one that absolutely just doesn't want to be there. Some people religiously oppose divorce. Some people just, I love my wife. I love my husband. I absolutely don't want to be here. We have represented people in all stages of their lives. I've represented people that are pregnant and going through a divorce. And we're talking about who's going to be in a delivery room and what are we going to name this unborn child. We've represented people that are in their 80s that are getting divorced after being together for 60-something years.
That's just come on, man. I work in the senior world, and I got to tell you, that's just silly.
Well,
you made it that long.
Well,
you made it that long.
Just let actuarial reality deliver for you.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're just lucky to get up every day.
Yeah.
Breathe. See.
One of you will cross the finish line of life before the other one. The last one across wins everything.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get it, especially because we live in a world now where, like, especially, I deal with seniors every day. I mean, 65 is the new 50. I mean, I deal with some 65-year-olds that are in better shape than me, and I'm 38.
Okay.
So, like, they take, you have a lot of people that are taking way better care of themselves. So, I mean, I guess 80, if they take really good care, like, I work with a couple insurance guys that are, 80 plus, and they're still out there selling insurance and helping people. And I mean, I guess I could see it if they feel like they got more years left to live, but that's crazy to me to give up after, 60 years of being together.
Well, you could be 80 and be like, I got 15 years left. My dad lived to be 95, and I don't want to spend the next 15 years or the last 15 years of my life in this situation.
True. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, I don't know. I guess some of those people, if you stuck it out that long, why wait,
What we don't have at that age is child custody battles.
Yeah, I would imagine that.
By then, your children are 55, 60 years old.
But sometimes that gets messy too, because you get those adult children that are getting involved, and sometimes they're aligned with one parent over another. Sometimes you have some cognitive decline for one parent, or I guess one party or another in that situation. And sometimes you're litigating a divorce, and it's really the adult child of the parties that's really litigating it in the background.
That's true.
So it can get messy on the flip side.
And typically it's because of assets when you're talking that too. So you have the puppet master in the background because they want more of what would be coming to them rather than
that happens
protecting their family.
Right, that happens a lot. They're just, whether it's for good reason or bad, sometimes it's greed. And other times it's just like, I know that if dad, who I'm not aligned with, if he gets a bunch of assets, my grandchildren or his grandchildren, my children will never see it. The more I can get into mom's side of the balance sheet, the more I know she's willing to leave to either me or my grandchildren or her grandchildren, my children. So that happens too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I mean, I know it just money's a terror. I mean, it's the greatest thing because if you have it, you're happy and you can do whatever you want, right? But it's also like one of those motivators that's like, for me personally, and I've always been this way. Look, I love money. Money is great, but that is not my number one motivation to do things. Like I love when I love something, I love it unconditionally, right? So love for me is way above money. Because, at the end of the day, when you die, you're not taking that shit with you, you know?
Well, and the money battles that baffle me are the ones kind of in the middle of the combined wealth curve. And by that, I mean, let's say that together, we've got a good nest egg. We're going to, retire together. Maybe have retired together. We've got enough, right? We're not super, super rich, but we're not broke. Well, if we get divorced, that ain't gonna be true. We're going to go from prosperous to not prosperous. So I get that. Those battles are worth waging. The ones that baffle me are the ones where there's not even 2 crumbs in the cabinet. You're poor together, you're going to be poor afterwards. What is this fight over? Or where you have these extremely wealthy families, everybody's walking away a billionaire. Everybody. but let's fight about the last crumb. And so when I was talking to Ned earlier about the pain, that's where it comes up. For us, not everything, in fact, most of the time, it's not about what it's about. They'll come in screaming about how he's done something with this payment that he didn't make. And you're like, oh, well, we'll get right on that. How much was it? $40. Like a day or an hour? Like, well, no, it's per year, but like, do you really think we're litigating over $40? No. He's gotten away with everything throughout the marriage. That's her perspective, right? He's gotten away with everything. Finally, I've got this pedigreed blue chip army on my side, and today the battle turns. Fortunately, it turned on a $40 deal, but we're going to mount our troops and attack. And so that's what trying to get us to go heal the pain, and we just don't do that. We end the conflict, but we don't, the legal conflict, but we don't end the interpersonal conflict.
Well, all right. Tell me if this could be for both of you or either of you. Tell me one courtroom moment that you'd never forget. And you don't have to go into specifics. Obviously, I know with HIPAA.
I know what it is for me, and I want to hear hers. I bet it's the same one.
No, you go ahead.
So Ned and I were trying a case together one time, and
It is the same one.
It is the same one. Yeah.
Go ahead.
and we have somewhat we have slightly different styles in the courtroom, and her thing is cross-examination. Okay, so I mean I've been in court with her before where I'm not kidding. The opposing party, we were trying the case actually in our conference room because it was a private deal, and the opposing party was sitting like right there from me, and Neda was sitting here, and she examined here. I swear to you, he shit himself and nearly vomited, but that's not the unforgettable moment. So the unforgettable, because he was just pounding, he's sobbing, and so she talks louder, so her voice carries over his sobs. So that's her cross-examination style. So the one that I'm about to talk about, got witnesses on the witness stand, and I'm sitting kind of in the courtroom like this, just next to them, just kind of listening to what's going on. It's not a big deal. She's just asking some background questions. And then she asked a follow-up question, maybe more stridently than he was expecting, but nonetheless, I wouldn't sit there going, good God, what are you doing? He responds back, no, I can do voices too.
What?
That face you just made, that's the judge. That's what the judge did.
What? Like, was he trying to be like a demon or something?
That's what it sounded like. And I was kind of looking down. I didn't even see him. I was just kind of looking down at the desk, kind of paying attention, listening, kind of sitting in that sort of a posture. And I looked up at the judge. I looked at Neda. I'm like, what did you do? What did you do? Yeah, you didn't do anything. She didn't. It was going to get worse for him as time went on that day. But that was pretty early on in the process. And I will never forget the exorcism that she conducted within the first 90 seconds of a cross-examination.
So did he go back to normal? That was the only time he said something like that?
So what did you reply?
I objected because...
Objected demon possession, Your Honor.
I know. Except we have to use legal objections. And so the legal objection to a comment that is not responsive to my question is a sidebar. So I stood up and I said, objection, sidebar. And the judge said sustained, which means that he agreed with my objection. And then I sat down, I asked my question again. And this time he took a deep breath and answered it.
You can never underestimate what a human being is willing to do. And just could you imagine their stenographer? like
Oh, I know. We need to get the transcript of that trial and see what she wrote. Yes, in a demon voice. Like, what did she write?
You just hear.
Exactly. Yeah.
You just hear this. She's like, I don't even know what to say to that.
And of course, the part that by itself was weird enough. But part of the allegations the poor guy was dealing with was that he might have a substance abuse issue. It's like,
something tells me he shot himself in the foot there.
Just like both feet all at once, easy shot.
Oh man, I mean
Yeah.
that's got to be rough. And you know what? To kind of go with that, how do you guys? Because obviously you deal with. I feel like if I'm looking at law as a whole, right? You could get very into these cases, right? Especially like on the criminal side. If you're trying something for murder or whatever, you can get pretty invested into that. But
Right.
I'd imagine on your side with the families, how hard is it for you to not put emotion into this? Like, because, obviously you have to be the litigators, right? You have to be like level headed and you're also fighting for one side, right? How do you keep your emotions out of that? And how do you go home and cut that off? Because that's got to be hard to just exercise that from your being when you leave the courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the longer you do it, the easier it gets to kind of have a better work life balance and turn it off. But sometimes you just don't. Like I'll be at home and just working on something else, and I'll think about a case. And sometimes I'll even send myself an email so I don't forget whatever it is I thought about. But
Don't forget to be mad about this tomorrow.
exactly. But because we deal with families and we have our own families, there is a lot of intersection. I represent people whose kids go to my kids' schools. And so it's just there is intersection all the time. Or you'll see something and you're like, oh, I had that one case where my client was mad about something similar to this. But just the longer I've been doing it, the easier it is to try to turn it off. Like when I go on vacation, I'm getting better at, not checking emails and turning it on. He disagrees. but
It's because the Wi-Fi on the cruise ship didn't work. Doesn't mean she's got discipline.
well, that's true.
Just go to the Dominican Republic, man. The Wi-Fi sucks there. You can get away
Yeah.
with
Oh,
it.
right. But sometimes we really do get into a case, especially when we have a multi-day trial coming up. We'll clear our calendars. We've had cases where we've come up here on the weekends and I'm sitting on the floor with notebooks in front of me and just trying to, go through it, and he'll do the same thing. And we've been up here till 2, 3 in the morning before trying to get ready for a trial. You didn't sleep one night. They just stayed up here and worked the next day somehow.
Fucking miserable.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of
he
caffeine.
was as well. It wasn't just the experience. He was as well.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes we really just do. I mean, these are people's kids, and you have a relationship with these clients at some point where it's like, you're really trying to fight for them, and you take up a cause where you really believe in your client and their case, and you fight for it passionately in and out of the courtroom.
I think that also what I've observed is different attorneys, probably just different personality types, will feel a little bit of emotion about different parts of the case. Like some will say, like, this is fundamentally unfair to this poor person. They shouldn't have to go through this. Screw this person for doing this, to this to our client, or that kind of thing. Or sometimes you're mad at your own client for being horrible. Where I tend to have to control is stupidity. So the clients will, like, I don't know, transiently get me mad, like every single whiny email. I'm like, all right, gather yourself, go. But where I'll go stomping around the room until someone pours water on my head is when another attorney sends over something so disconnected from rationale, facts, or the law that it just like all you're doing here is making these people's lives worse. And yeah, I'll storm around about that for I mean, I can't. If Neda wasn't here, I'd lie and say I get over it pretty quickly. But she knows I don't. I don't get over it very quickly at all.
That doesn't bother me. Like when something like that happens, I kind of like, I just get over it. What bothers me is when people do stuff when it comes to kids. Like,
Well,
I just
right.
can't handle that. The recordings that we hear and the pictures and people, fighting in front of their kids and doing stuff like that. Like I can't get past that. And that's what sticks with me for the longest period of time.
But when you go home, I only have one child. She's 27 or about to be 28. So I don't go home to little kids anymore. And my wife's, she's got a career. So it's not like she's waiting at home like, oh my gosh, let's see what Tom wants to do tonight. Like she's happy if I come home and I'm distracted. But
Yeah.
but I can't be fully present. We've been married 38 years. I can't be fully present to make that 39th year work or that 40th year work if I'm carrying all this home. And so sometimes I have to remind myself that I cannot take responsibility for the circumstances these people put themselves in. And there's always an apportionment of cause to the situation. And I don't mean to blame victims, but if you are solely a victim, then you have no ability to make your situation better. So everybody's got some, like, even if the responsibility is I married the wrong person or I stayed in the marriage for too long, whatever it is. But I cannot take responsibility for what you did. I can help you unwind it. I can try to help you get a just and equitable outcome, but I can't take responsibility for it, or I'm not going to make it to year number 39.
Yeah, and one thing one of our law partners said to a client one time that stuck with me was he's been practicing law for 45 years or so.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that, and he's been married for longer than that. And he said it was like being an ER physician and going home to a skinned knee sometimes because what we do sometimes is so heavy, and we hear about some crazy facts and just, there's family violence, there's substance abuse, there's all sorts of things. And then you go home and your spouse is, harping on you about something at the house, and you're like, okay, hold on a second. What I dealt
Never
with at
happens
work-
to us. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Exactly. That's just a lawyer thing. That's not to have anybody else in the world.
And you know what the flip side of it looks like too. So if I go home and I want to, strangle my husband, I'm like, okay, well, I also know what this looks like post-divorce as far as co-parenting and whatnot, and maybe I don't want to go there. So sometimes it's helpful to know what the flip side looks like.
That's probably true.
That's actually really good. I didn't think about it like that. You're like, oh, you know what? I know it's on the other end, and the grass is not greener there.
No, it's not. Sometimes there's not even any grass.
Is there any truth? And it would behoove me if I didn't ask this, but is there any truth that and it might be different in Texas? I know law everywhere is a little different. That the men get the short end of the stick in most cases.
I'm glad you asked that, because earlier when you said a common myth, that's the common myth.
Okay.
And so I was doing an interview one time with Neda knows the name of the person. Remembering names isn't my strong suit, but anyway, I guess she's famous for not liking women, whatever. Anyway, so she's interviewing me about the topic was how to destroy a man or something like that. I think was the book they were trying to develop a documentary around.
That's good.
And so she was asking me, yeah, right. Well, it was a critique of the family law system, saying that it's put together to destroy men. That's the idea of it. And so she asked me that. Okay. She goes, "Do you think the family law system is put together to destroy men?" And I said, "In Texas, all of our laws down in Austin are passed by a bunch of divorced men. To me, it just doesn't seem statistically very likely that a bunch of folks put in place a system designed to harm their bros. So I don't know that the system is designed that way. Where I think you see problems is say co-parenting is an example. Okay, so in my marriage, when our kid was little and she was living with us at home, Ava, my wife, she did all the lifting. Okay, I mean, if she dropped something, I might pick it up if she asked, but like, she was the captain of the parenting ship. But I got to see my daughter every single night. We had, because we lived together, right? So we were married and we saw my kid every single night. Now imagine if we get divorced. She's going to go up and tell the judge, this child should primarily live with me. And I'm going to say, no, I want the child to primarily live with me. Because we both know that no matter how this turns out, we're not going to get to see our kid every night like we used to do. Even if she's with mom 90% of the time, 10% of the time, mom's not going to get to see her kid again, whereas she used to see her 100% of the time. So even 50-50 is a hard thing to swallow. So we're both up there kind of asking for the same thing. So what's the judge asking? The judge is saying, who's been doing the lifting? Who's been the primary caregiver of this child? And often enough, the way our society is working these days, it has, for about the last 5,000 years, it's the mom. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have the moms they have their own mental health problems or substance abuse problems or career, traveling career, that kind of thing. And they never were the primary parent. And those are always the contra-examples of the fathers winning custody of their children. And we have plenty of cases like that. We represent fathers and get them custody because they've been primary caregivers or at least equal caregivers. But it's really, I don't think the family law system is set up that way. I just think that we've adopted again, for about 5,000 years, some social norms that have mom, like Ned is one of the highest producing partners in our firm and a primary caregiver of kids. That's just, yeah, well, three, yeah, exactly. I can't count as an army of kids, right? And that's just how that works out. And I'm not an advocate for that or necessarily a critic of it, but the outcome of that is that in a custody dispute, she would have a hard time losing. Same thing with the asset division is, my wife and I have accumulated, $1,000, time to leave, time to split up. Well, I've got really high earnings capacity and I don't have any medical issues and I don't have any, educational deficiency. I've got a graduate degree and all that. And my wife has all that stuff too. But hypothetically, to say she's leaving, she doesn't really have much of an earnings capacity. She's got a degree in crayon sorting. And that was part of our deal, right? I wasn't critical of that through the 38 years of marriage. But here the marriage is breaking apart. I can go on to make law partner money, and she's going to go on to make crayon sorter money. And so the judge may say, you know what? We're in Texas. We certainly don't want you on welfare. We're not going to pay. Tom, that's your mistake, not ours. We're not going to pay for her. So out of that $1,000, maybe we're going to give her 600 and you 400. Well, now I feel like I've been deprived of the fruits of all my labors all over all these years. And mathematically, that's true, but existentially, what really happened was the court's like, Tom, you're going to make it back. She won't.
Well, and sometimes it's not even dividing it disproportionately. Some people have the attitude of, well, I earned it with my blood, sweat, and tears, and I was the one working, and she never worked a day in her life. Or flip side, some women have that attitude if they make more than their spouses. And honestly, I think men handle that portion of the law better sometimes in my cases, where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's all community property. It's all going to be divided 50-50. Doesn't matter who earned it. And then women, because of that role reversal there, when they're the ones working and earning more money than their husbands, and you tell them, yeah, I understand that you worked. I understand that you had babies and then you had to go back to work right away and you earned all this money, but he gets part of it too. I've seen it both ways, and I'm with Tom. I don't think it's a legal issue, more of just a societal norm type situation.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and I can see that, and you do have to value. I mean, yeah, working, and bringing in the money, obviously you pay the bills and stuff, but if the woman's taking care of the kids, I mean, that's a job and it's on its own for sure, especially if there's more than one.
Yeah.
We don't have kids.
Wife,
we're going to stick with dogs.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, one of my wife's bumper stickers I wish she was selling says, and she's not a crude person, but this is her bumper sticker nonetheless. She says, if you want to be the primary parent, do primary shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great bumper sticker.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't. We probably wouldn't even have to do this. We would just sell bumper stickers that come out of her mind. But that's the thing is your past comes home to roost when they divide things up, and it doesn't. It feels like a qualitative judgment of who you've been, but it's not. It's just that we've got these what the parents like to focus on is their rights. And the United States Constitution, the Supreme Court have made it real clear: parents do have rights. But what the Texas Family Code tells us to do, in this very thunderous language at the beginning of Title V, it says essentially that the needs of the child shall always be the primary consideration of the court. So when I tell a client, look, if we want something from the judge, we're not going to talk about how I have these God-given rights or these natural rights or these constitutional rights. We talk about how does this affect the child. So if the kid, let's say that our kid is uniquely talented in math, and I'm really good at math, and mom can't do any math. So I go, that's part of my argument. This child needs what I can offer on math. So at least let's come up with a possession schedule that lets me have homework nights or that sort of thing, as opposed to I'm an equal parent, I should have equal time. That's just a weak argument. The way to get there is to argue from the perspective of the child. How does this affect your child?
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I didn't really think about that. When my parents divorced, it was all right, well, going to live with mom because that's what happened, and there wasn't really anything about it. My mom, I don't even think, tried to take my dad to court for anything really. And then living with my mom and the new stepdad was awful.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And decided that I was, and I'm the older son, so I have a brother. He's 5 years younger than me, and I felt bad leaving him, but I'm like, nah, bro, I can't do this. I'm no, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
But living with my dad, who was 30, my dad was, how old was my dad? Let's see, my dad is 62. I'm 38. My dad was probably younger than me. He was maybe 35, 36. So in my head, I'm imagining me getting a divorce, like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't his fault. My mom cheated on my dad, and then it all went downhill, or whatever. And I could only imagine what my reaction would be, which was probably what my dad went off the rails, we'll say, and I decided to live with him. So my life as like a 13-year-old was pretty interesting.
Oh,
So,
wow.
my mom was not happy, but I made the decision, and I gotta say, I learned, because my mom, I was a mama's boy for sure. Like, she did everything: laundry, dishes, cooked, cleaned, everything. And when I went to live with my dad did zero.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, bro, you're gonna learn how to be an adult. So I did all the dishes. He had roommates that were in college. So you just come downstairs, people would be passed out on the couch. There'd be a bowl on the table, and like my dad would try. Like my dad always worked with his hands, so he was doing whatever he could to pay the bills, and he would try to explain it off for a kid who didn't really understand what that was, because I was very naive.
Right.
Now looking back, I'm like, they were smoking weed, all of them, all those bastards, But I am happy I did that, because I learned how to be an adult early in life.
Sure.
And I saw how hard my dad had to work to make ends meet, and I saw my dad make a lot of fucking mistakes. And for me, it was a really good learning experience of what to do and what not to do. Had I stayed with my mom, I mean, I'm sure I would have turned out fine. But I don't think I would have been an adult as fast. It took me a lot longer. And my mom's a caregiver. That's what she does. She takes care of everybody, So if I had a little sniffles, she's like, oh, like one of those. And she still does it. My mom, I love her to death. I live in Northeast Philadelphia. She lives an hour from me.
Okay.
If she sees a news story that there was a car crash, I'm getting a phone call. Are you okay? I'm like, Mom, I'm fine. Northeast Philly is a pretty big area.
Right.
We're good.
Well,
but
not to minimize what you had to go through as a kid, because no one ever knows what another person experiences. But when I hear your story, what I don't hear is the stuff that makes our light stay on. In other words, you get the son, and that's a pretty common scenario. The son gets to a certain age, like, I want to go live with dad. I'm starting to identify with male role models, and I like my dad. Okay, first of all, apparently you didn't get alienated from your dad by your mom, which she easily could have done. So I thank her for that. And when you made that decision, that custody battle, that's $1 million battle.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I can get this whole floor of people signed up and billing to fight her off, or to fight your dad off. And your mom said, do what you need to do. I'm not happy about this, but do what you need to do. So I'm kind of grateful to both your parents that they didn't let it turn into that.
Yeah, and I think it was look, it wasn't a clean break, that's for sure. But I do think that over the years, it just kind of, I think the nice thing about my family and my parents is they always kind of let me be me. You know, and I guess because I'm the firstborn, and I was born in the 80s. That's kind of like an old school mentality, I guess, maybe, I don't know, but they let me make my own decisions. And when it got to that point, I said to my mom, like, I can't do this, and she let me do it. Now my brother was the baby; he wasn't going anywhere.
He wasn't going anywhere. He was perfectly situated.
And he's still there. By the way, he's still at home, and he just had a baby, but she's loving it because she always wanted a grandkid, and now she's got it.
Okay.
It was supposed to be me because I'm the responsible firstborn, but you know what? It's not in the cards, and we love our little dogs like they're our babies anyway.
Absolutely.
So, and Captain and Morgan are the names of my dogs.
Oh, very good.
Love it.
Yeah, we love rum here. So let me ask you something. So, if you could fix anything in the family law world, is there anything you would change right away?
So there's a lot of principles that are common across states, but there is also quite a bit of uniqueness state to state. So I'll think specifically about Texas. One of the things we have in Texas is the way we handle child support. The way we handle child support, let's say Ned and I are getting divorced, and I'm the primary caregiver because she's running a law firm. She's making a lot of money. The way we do child support in Texas is we take her gross income and run a really simple math problem on it. A very simple math problem, and that's the amount of child support. Okay. Whereas a lot of states will do a comparative income deal. So to look at, well, I make this much, she makes that much. And they've got grids and charts and mathematicians getting involved in heavy formulas, but nonetheless, it comes up with, just looking at the resource between the parties. So in Texas, she's thinking, fuck this guy. I don't feel like writing him a check like that. He could be making more if he wasn't so lazy and playing video games all the time or screwing around with his AI experiments. He could be out there making money. I don't want to write checks for him. And particularly if his new girlfriend's going to be profiting from it. So then she wants to fight me for custody so she doesn't have to pay child support. And so we end up in these high dollar, high conflict, knockdown, drag out, sometimes heartbreaking custody battles, which are really proxy wars over child support obligations. So if Texas would do more, would adopt what I think is a more civilized comparative income approach, then we'll fight custody where custody needs to be fought and not have to have it as a proxy war to try to keep, because either way, if whether we were having 50-50 with our kids or slightly different pattern, her child support obligation isn't going to change a whole heck of a lot based on the possession schedule just because of the difference in incomes. So if you have a state, and many states in the United States have adopted that. Hell, Oklahoma's adopted it, just north of us. Are you kidding me? Texas is behind Oklahoma. Lord, give me strength. So that's where we are. So we'll have these and sometimes these custody battles are righteous. The other parent has got serious mental health concerns, substance abuse issues. They're violent. I mean, that can happen. Or, I had a client one time. He's a great dad. He's a sweet man. His daughter loved him, but he worked at an airport and he had to be at work at 4:00 in the morning. So he just can't have a child overnight because he didn't have a new spouse or a roommate or anything like that. So who's going to take the child from him at 3:00 in the morning when he leaves? So it just wasn't practical for him. So some of those battles are righteous, but where it's a proxy war over child support, it destroys people.
That's what I was going to say.
Rough.
Child support is the issue. Like, something that's never made sense to me was, in that scenario, if I made, $100,000 a year and Tom was the primary caregiver and he made $500,000, the child support calculation would just look at my income as the payor of the child support. If it was a guideline support, and it would say, okay, Neda, based on your $100,000 a year, you're paying this guy that makes 5 times what you make child support based on your income alone. His income does not matter at all. On the flip side, if I made $5 million a year, my child support for one kid in Texas is $1,840 a month, $1,840 a month. That's it. It caps out. And so the child support in Texas, like Tom said, like, we'll have people that are like, how do I get out of paying him or her child support? And, some of them are like, fine, I'll ask for custody, or I'll ask for a 50-50 custody schedule just so it offsets the child support and I don't have to pay as much. If it just was separate, I think it would really help with the conflict that we deal with sometimes.
And lawyers shouldn't be afraid of that, because if we didn't have those proxy battles, I promise you, and you know this from your studies of psychology, we will always find something to fight about.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Especially in today's world.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. So it's not like if they solve that, because all these other 51 states that do a comparative income approach, but that might...
49.
Well, I was counting Canada, but you're right, but it's 49.
Future 51st state.
We are now going to have a fight.
Canada, Greenland.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fight out at the end of the podcast, so thank me for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, 41 other states, and even that number may not be exactly right. But anyway, if we adopted that, family law attorneys in those states make money. Family law attorneys in New York make money. They have a comparative income approach. In Pennsylvania, they have a comparative income approach. Family law attorneys make money in Pennsylvania. So it's not like, oh my gosh, we'd have to go learn how to be golf caddies or dig ditches or other noble work that just doesn't pay as much if we didn't have that to fight about.
Well, and we're not the ones making the laws. It's the legislators involved. We've got the Attorney General's office involved. We're not the ones making those laws.
Right.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Let's end on this. I didn't get to half the stuff I wanted to because this was a great conversation. It's always what happens, man. I always have some great questions I want to ask, and I never get to them. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, we'll catch up.
So, since we started with technology, let's end with technology. Do you ever see a future where someone navigates divorce or a custody battle solely with AI?
Yes.
I could see that happening. I don't think that'll be an optimal outcome, but as opposed to navigating it all by themselves, yeah, I think that's around the corner. As opposed to replacing attorneys. So Kai-Fu Lee, he's one of the guys who has admitted to being a father of AI for a long time. The AI experiment's been going on for 40 or 50 years, and almost all of them failed, and nobody ever wanted to claim anything to do with AI. Now everybody wants to say that, everybody's claiming paternity now, right? So they're all ready.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Kai-Fu Lee's been claiming paternity for a long, long time, and he's the reason that you can talk to an iPhone. His team's developed a Hey Siri and then how to process those voice signals into some actionable insight. So anyway, Kai-Fu...
Not you and Rob, though.
No, not us. But Hey Google, same kind of technology, though.
Same thing. It works. It's the same thing.
She has to get the Apple dig in, But anyway, so what Kai-Fu Lee does, he's got a great TED talk about this. So he divides jobs into quadrants, where one axis is routine work versus creativity, and the other is compassion versus optimization. So insurance claim processing, that's routine work. You want to optimize it. No compassion. The rules, the rules.
Black and white.
Right. Psychologist, highly creative because you've got to, you have your body of knowledge, but each patient brings its own context. So you can't say, you've got to treat the patient as before you, right? And so you need the creativity, and you also need the compassion, because when they're complaining about problems, you've got to care enough about that to want to get down to maybe what a root cause is. So you look at the family law world or the law world, somebody who's reviewing oil and gas leases, that's low quadrant work. There's not much creativity there, not any compassion needed. In fact, it's so low creativity, so low compassion that most of that's been automated and those people don't have jobs. But in the litigation world, where we're dealing with family issues, we have to think creatively, not artistically creatively, but like earlier when I was telling you, take it from the child's perspective, argue that to the court, right? Well, you said I hadn't thought about it that way. Well, a lot of people haven't, including a lot of attorneys haven't. So I can bring that to the table, and also just bring in the concerns of this family to the table, not as a statistical analog to all other families that have existed since the beginning of time, but as their own independent unit. And so I think that there's always this notion of a human in the loop, bringing that compassion and creativity where it has value. And in our world, I still see human compassion and creativity augmented by technology, substantially augmented by technology, as being beneficial to people going forward for quite a while.
And I know you're not the tech guru over there, Neda, but let's end on this, because I think it'll be fun. And I do agree with you, by the way. I think AI is going to augment a lot of things. I mean, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But look, it was a pleasure having you guys on. I know we fought a lot of tech issues, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hang out. Please plug yourselves. Tell us where, I don't know if you guys operate just in Texas or if you have anything else, around the country. So
we handle cases all around the country, but primarily in Texas and primarily in Collin and surrounding counties in Texas. So the name of our firm is Koons Fuller. You can find us at www.koons, Koons, Fuller.com. You can find me at thomasjdaily.com. You can find Neda at koonsfuller.com because she practically runs the firm. So that's how to get in touch with us if anybody ever wants to follow up with us.
Remind me to never have any sort of cross-examination by Neda, because
You do not want that, brother. You do not want that.
I do.
Hire her so she's on your side.
It's good. It's good. Remember, I'm just gonna say please and thank you for everything I do. Don't get me. My podcast is Drink O'Clock Podcast. You can listen to this anywhere you listen to podcasts, and Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials. So you guys have a great night, and hopefully you crack one of those old fashions when you leave.
Excellent.
Thank
you.
you.
Had a good
Thank you.
time.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the flame. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the bar.